free coffee vouchers at the back too if you want coffee. And it's right. So we should kick off because people on the live stream might be...
Yeah, we're started now, but I'm just on the slate, it's not.
Ah, so it's
2 minutes should, it's live now, yeah, with that. But a few minutes should be okay.
that's the way. Well, I might have to
Yeah, that's great.
So I'll get going on intros.
Testing, 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 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. Is this what?
think you actually need to turn it on, hey? Turn on the things. Testing, hey. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Scott Glue. Welcome to Morning Startup. How you all feeling on such a rainy, miserable morning? Good. Excellent. Yeah, excellent. So, if you haven't been to Morning Startup before, we meet every 2 weeks, rain, hail or shine, and we talk about startup-related stuff. So we had an awesome speaker. Today we've got Dylan Lamb, who's going to take us through what he's learned about growth ops, which I'm really looking forward to. And but first of all, we like to know who's in the audience, what you're up to, if anyone's got something cool going on. So we call it shameless plugs and announcements. So does anyone have a shameless plug? We're talking like, get up in 20 seconds, tell us what you're up to. Who's game? No one? Come on. Who's the biggest hustler in the room? Serious? I can point. No. Go. Oh, legend. We just need one to kick things off.
Yeah, okay, cool. Hi, my name is Nana. With Maiden Capital, we funded a few startups. One of our startups that we put about 3 million in over the last 2 years is looking for a CFO/finance manager, somebody with an accounting background, team of about 15 people. So if you know anybody, send them their way, MLab, or send them my way. I'll forward it on to the boys at MLab. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Anyone else doing something cool? Excellent. All right, we've got 2 in the corner.
Morning everyone, my name's Dave. I'm from Better Labs. I'm in the venture studio working on a project called Creator Flow, and we're basically creating like a marketplace for UGC style content. It's taking off on social media as the fastest, cheapest way to experiment with ad creative. So yeah, check us out, creatorflow.com.au.
Yeah, what's UGC?
So UGC, user-generated content, but it's become its own thing in that it's a style of ad creative where it's influencer-style content without influencer-style headaches. That's pretty much it.
Okay. And you had something to say too?
Hi everyone, my name is Anastasia Bloshkina. I heard the call about finance professionals and thought I'd mention that I'm actually on the WA Divisional Council for CPA Australia. So we do have a big network of people who might be interested. So yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. All right, has anyone else warmed up? Yes, good on ya.
Hello, my name is Mark. I'm the first time come to this event. I come from China. I do my business in China for a long time. Recently, I just come back from China. I found that the Australian is brilliant, very smart people in the world, but they have some problem make their innovation become reality. So I want to find some way to bridge the gap between your thought and the real product. Because everything you thought, you can always find the cheapest way making the product, even the prototype in the China very easily and very fast. So this is one. And another gap is that a lot of the China innovation, they did not find a way to go through to the US or Australian market. They did not know how to sell their product. They really have a very brilliant product in there. And but they have no idea how to sell. They did not have the connection. They did not know the culture. They did not know how to connect with Western people. So I just the first time found this meetup. I try to understand what is to have me, but I have a lot of idea to just bridge the product to the market and your innovation to the product. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So you can help people manufacture their products using Chinese resources, cheaper and faster and awesome. Anyone doing like manufacturing in? Maybe? Okay. Well, you guys have a chat. All right, cool. So I've got a couple of shameless plugs too. First of all, actually, before we get onto that, sorry, Matthews, I want to talk about this one. Startup Weekend. If you haven't heard of Startup Weekend before, it's on again. I think this is the 14th one they've run in Perth. It's a weekend. If you've got an idea or an innovation or something that you want to just can't get out of your brain and you want to spend a whole weekend hacking on it with a team, it's a really, really good way to do it. It's all about validating your idea and maybe making a prototype. You pitch it on the Friday night, you form a team, you work on it through the weekend, and then on Sunday the team pitches the final thing and you win stuff. I'm not quite sure what you win, but do it. It's really good. It's a great fun event. And now I'm going to hand over to Matthews. So Matthews just has a quick 5-minute shameless plug that he wants to let all the startups in Perth know about. So come on up.
Thanks, Scott. So my name is Mateus. I'm here with Vici Ventures, this Agile company, and I want to present you Velocity. It's a mentoring program that helps connect startups with leading companies in our industry. It's free, and there is no equity consideration to participate. And how do we aim to connect those startups, those founders, with the companies? We are going to organize. We'll meet with the founders, help them understand what are their problems, what are the questions that they need to bring to the table. And on the other side, we'll get the mentors that can answer those questions and can also bring real actionable points to each of the encounters. But just to clarify, who are those mentors? As I said, we aim to connect with leading companies in the industry. So the mentors will be senior executives of 3 main industries that we want to tackle. Will be senior executives from mining and resource, banking and retail. So we'll connect them, people that are really feeling the pain that the founders are trying to solve, with the founders themselves. And the second thing that we want to do is help the startups, to help the founders build networks. So we will organize events with the founders and also with mentors and their connections to build this network between the founders. And the third thing is, as each of the encounters happen, we'll probably identify specific problems for each of the startups. And in that way, we want to organize expert sessions with our team to answer or to help you understand how to solve those specific problems. So let's say, for example, that you identify that you as a founder don't have your finance skill or don't know how to sell your product, as you mentioned. So we will organize expert sessions with our team to explain you how you can do that in your context. In this screen, there is a QR code where you can apply for the program. The applications will be due to July 14, and on August 4, we will announce what are the startups that will participate. The program will last from August to December. So if you know any founders, if you are a founder yourself, please take a picture of the QR code. The QR codes are also back there, so you can take pictures or scan by the end of the meeting. And I'll be here if you have any questions. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you very much. Did anyone have any questions now?
I'd be curious, what's the model? Like, how do you make money from that?
The idea is not to make money from that. So we are doing this just to contribute with the ecosystem. As I said, it's free. It's no equity considered. There's no equity to participate.
What's the selection criteria for startups?
Good. The startups will be. You need to have a product already to be able to connect you with potential clients, to connect you with the companies. So the first criteria is this: have a product that can be marketed. And all the other criteria is being one of the 3 industries that I mentioned: mining and resources, banking, or retail. Apart from that, there are more details on the website. I don't want to take more time here, but if you have more questions, you can ask me in the end. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Matthias. Cheers. Yeah, cool. It's good to see more options and everything coming available to startups to help get you to the next stage. So we also have Founder Sundowner. If you're not a morning person, come along for drinks on the first Wednesday of every month. And just got some people that we would like to thank. So you might have noticed we got some serious camera gear going on at the back. That's our live streams. This has been beamed to the world, and that's thanks to the New Industries Fund from the Department of Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation. So thank you very much to them for live streaming these events and making them available to the industries. The regions. We've also got this guy down here, wadealroom.co. If you don't know about that, go check it out. Charlie Gunningham did a talk last year when they launched. It's basically an online platform where you can upload your startup's information, as much or as little information as you want. You can put revenue figures there or whatever, but it's a way to help show what's happening in WA. So get on it. Put your startup on Dealroom. And that will show at least the governments that we've got a cool ecosystem happening here, and things are happening, so their money's going in the right direction. Ammo Marketing, thank you very much for sponsoring Morning Startup for the last 2 years. So go check them out, ammo.marketing. They've also got a podcast called Weird Growth. Make sure you subscribe to that. And Beecham, we've got Glenn at the back. If you've got some talent problems and you need to hire more people, or if you want to get hired in a cool company, go and have a chat to Glenn. He can help you out. And Keep Space. So we've got some food at the back. We'll have about half an hour of networking at the end of this talk. So help yourself. And that's thanks to Keep Space. Is anyone in the e-commerce game shipping goods around the place? Well, maybe someone is on the live stream. So they've got a warehouse here in Perth and a warehouse in Melbourne. If you need help with logistics and shipping things around, get on board with Keep Space. And TechOn have just come on board as well. So we've got Hayley here in the audience. So little disclaimer, I've used TechOn to create our website. If you want to go to fastfew.co, shameless plug, and see what they can do. They're basically developers. If you need developers, they can help you hire developers and build your team. Works really well if you've got in-house developers and you just need to augment that team by bringing on some more hands. So really, really cool. Check them out and grab yourself a free coffee. They've got some vouchers at the back. So take it to, cheers Hayley, cheers TechOn. Take it down to Joey Zazza's and grab yourself a coffee. All right, and a bunch of supportive organisations. Make sure you subscribe to Startup News, Startup WA and Tech Board. Startup WA is like our industry body for startups in WA. Startup News, the best startup news in Perth about what's happening. If you've got a startup story as well, reach out to Startup News. They'll send a journo out to your place and do a story on you. So very, very cool. And Space Cubed, they obviously own this place that we're in, Riff, and they've got Fern and Flux down the road. So if you need somewhere to work, do it there. They also are involved in the Plus 8 program, so if you want to learn how to become a better entrepreneur, check out Plus 8. All right. Contact us if you're interested in doing a talk anytime. Interested to hear from you. And this is what's happening in 2 weeks' time. So, we run this every 2 weeks, and we haven't done one of these for a while. We've just had an influx of speakers talking about cool stuff. But we really want to have a pitch event. So if you're interested in standing up here, 3 minutes is usually the limit. Depending on how many startups we get applying, we might extend it to 5, we'll see. But it's a 3-minute pitch and then 2 minutes of questions. We'll try and get some special guests in the audience to ask you some hairy questions after the pitch, but it's just a way to practice, really. This audience is pretty supportive. Everyone's in the startup game. Everyone knows how hard it is to get up in front of people and pitch, and stuff goes wrong with clickers and all of that stuff that you can't imagine, right? So just practice it all the time. You should always be practicing your pitch. So this is a really good opportunity to do that in front of a real audience. So if you want to apply, send us an email, contact@morningstartup.com. Just say, interested in pitching. Give me a quick description of what your startup is, and that's all it takes, and we'll see if we can get you on the list. But do it quick, so if we get 1,000 people wanting to pitch, that just won't work. We're hoping to get 6 or 8 or something like that. So that's in 2 weeks' time. So I want to hear from you, startups of Perth. And that is formalities out of the way. I'm never taking that slide down. It's still good. I don't care what you say. All right, but that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to this cool guy, Dylan. I met Dylan a few years ago, and then he buggered off to Brisbane to do even cooler stuff. But he's been hacking around on a whole bunch of things, the latest of which was an e-mobility scooter company in Brisbane. He learned he was telling me stories, you're probably going to hear them, of just crazy stuff that he had to do, running around, in the wee hours of the morning, reorganising scooters to go to different locations to, get the best chance of them being hired the next day, and looking at the data. Oh, it's mad. So I'm just going to hand over to him. He's going to tell you some cool stories about growth ops, and please make him welcome, Dylan Lamb. Woo!
Great. Thank you, Scott. It's great to be back. I remember giving a morning startup talk, I think it would have been 3 or 4 years ago, about circular economics when I was running a previous business. So awesome community. Year in Brisbane. It's great to plug back in here, and Perth and the innovation ecosystem is alive and well. And on the journey to thriving. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a croaky voice, recovering from the flu. What I wanted to do to get started was just do a quick icebreaker activity. So I'm a designer and facilitator at heart, and there's lots of new people in the room here, and I think one of the best things about these events is the cross-pollination and interaction. So we've got a little game, so I'm going to hand out these cards, and I would like everyone to form. It's also a good excuse to kind of bring everyone to the front of the room. I'm not going to force you, but if you would like to play this game, you don't have to. So I'm going to give out a card, so maybe you two here. Maybe you two could sort of join in this group, and a group of 4. You 3 here, I know you're all friends. Some of my friends, so maybe find another 1 person here. We'll go a group of 3 here if you want to play. So the game's called Wicked Pitch. It's an old business card. Do you want to go 3 here? We'll go maybe a 3 here as well, and then 1 more group here, maybe Scott. And I don't have it on the screen, sorry, but for those dialing online. So this was actually an iteration of another tool called Elevator Pitch that was made by another great designer in this community. But I'm just going to read out the card. So in small groups or pairs, pick a famous actor, actress, politician, musician, sports personality or innovator. So don't think about it too much, whoever comes to mind. And then the next one is select a wicked challenge. All right, so we're talking about really juicy, complex challenges in the world. You can read through the list there. You can also create your own. So it might be growth. All right, it might be growth of the WA economy, something really big and huge. All right, and then develop an idea in 3 minutes where you pitch the idea. How might that person you chose in step 1 address the challenge of that? And get really creative. And then we'll go around the room, and if anyone wants to share, they can share back. Okay, 3 minutes. Off you go. So you've got about 30 seconds left. So start to think about the idea and if you want to share it back with the group.
Potato powder. Oh yeah, it was. Well, because he was basically a character, Tony Gallardi, before Tony Gallardi was a thing. Like it's that Con the Fruiterer. Yeah. He was like a sketch.
Alrighty, that's 3 minutes there. So you might want to nominate your group. I'd love to hear some of the ideas. I love this game. Start to have a think. It can be as simple. Okay, we'll wrap it up there. So it can be as simple as pretty much just read out whoever you chose in step one. Tell us what challenge you chose and tell us any idea or, there's no such thing as a silly idea. Does this group want to share? Yeah, I'll give you a microphone.
We chose Donald Trump and address the challenge of behavior changing. And the idea would be make a political speech going in the complete opposite of what he says nowadays. So yeah, it would be basically that. It would cause, I don't know. At least would be fun.
He's pretty good at behavioural change.
Yeah, if only we could flip Donald Trump and make him an opposite version, that'd be great. This group here, does anyone want to share?
You've got to take the challenge seriously, guys. That's not going to happen. We thought about the housing or affordability crisis in Sydney and maybe getting somebody to drive people out of Sydney. But then maybe a more positive view is to get Adam Gilchrist, who came from New South Wales to Perth, to kind of encourage people to head to Perth. And then we thought maybe we don't want Sydney-siders here. So maybe push them out into the regions. So yeah. Maybe cheap, affordable housing from China as well, shipped over. So,
great ideas there. I love it. I'm heading over to Sydney. I think there's probably one or two people on the live stream, so if you heard that, apologies. You're welcome in Perth. Was there a group here? Did you want to share? No? You're good? Anyone here? Anyone got a raging good idea?
So we want to tackle the decarbonisation problem and renewable energy, and that we think there's no one better to do that, particularly for WA, than Tony Gallardi from Spudshed. So cast your mind back to school where you did the potato-powered light bulb, and we think there's probably something in an electrolyte fueled by potatoes. You think about salt lithium or salt ion batteries and all that. So why not have a potato-powered economy?
Amazing. I wonder if there's a Gallardi, listening to this, pitch it to your dad or pitch it to Tony. That's a great idea. He'd run with it. Brilliant. This group? Anyone? No? Wasn't good enough? Do you guys want to share? May as well. Lucky last.
Sort of Elon Musk, but Elon Musk has a banner for every rich person. There's enough money in the world that if we simply taxed all their assets above $1 billion at 2.5% per year, you'd solve world poverty pretty much overnight.
Yeah, good idea. Thanks everyone for partaking in that game. You can keep these cards if you want. This was actually a little innovation that I came up with in a previous business, just to try and make the business card a bit more memorable and usable. But just an icebreaker game to sort of get you thinking early in the morning, more than just coffee to wake you up. The idea of that is there's some really complex problems in the world, and we need to sort of come up with new thinking and new ways. We can't necessarily solve complex problems, right? But we can come up with ideas and innovations and startups that can start to shift things in the right direction. So that's kind of a bit of the notion of today as well in my career and the work I'm doing. So acknowledgements. I'd like to go through a few acknowledgements today. So first of all, just acknowledge country. So we're on Wajak Puja Noongar, and it's really nice for me to come back to my hometown, Boorloo, Perth. So I just want to acknowledge place today, where we are, and just pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, to anyone who's Indigenous here in the room. And yeah, to all the people where you're sitting today, calling in on the live stream. Just acknowledge country. Place as well for me, so Space Cubed, this venue has a lot of great memories. It's kind of the OG and underground Space Cubed. It's really cool when you leave Perth as an entrepreneur. You work in other cities, you work abroad and you come back here, and it's really thriving at the moment. I used to run a business out the back for sort of 2 to 3 years, and to come back and to see it grow, to see businesses that are still here, businesses that are not. It's really good. So it's a very welcoming community, so thank you. I saw an email signature from another designer, a systemic designer in Sydney, and they did this acknowledgement of crisis, which I kind of liked and I kind of didn't. But I just wanted to chuck it in today. So on the idea of the notion of complex challenges, so I'll just acknowledge that there is crisis in the world, right? There are people that all of a sudden one day are fine and next day they don't have a home, it's burnt down, it's flooded. And that's a real driver, I think, for me to change the way we live, the way we do things. And it's a great opportunity and a leverage point as an entrepreneur and a startup to create a solution, a product or a service that can acknowledge and respond to crisis. And the last one is design, and that's really where I sit, I think. I'm really passionate, pretty sort of eclectic and eccentric, but I really think design can kind of save us, or design can improve our lives. So I identify these days as a systemic designer, and that is this emerging design field that encompasses all these sort of design thinkings and philosophies. And it's a great tool, I think, to tackle complexity and complex challenges in business, in economy and society, and so many sort of systems. So what I'm going to go through today is I'm going to talk, the thread for the talk was growth ops, and a huge thanks to Scott. He sort of helped me to distill and crystallise what I should talk about this morning. There were a few different things I wanted to talk about, but we kind of honed in on growth ops. So I'll talk quite candidly about me, about my why, what drives me each day, and kind of a bit of a retro of my career to date. I'm 30 years old. I want to talk a lot about growth. We talk a lot about growth, I think, in startups and in this kind of community. Really candidly and plainly speak about it. So what is good growth? What is bad growth? And then ops. So ops is short form for operations. And then the kind of intersection of the two, which I call growth ops. I'm going to talk a lot about my year in Brisbane working for a tech startup. So there's this really cool emerging industry of micromobility. You can walk out of here and pull your phone out and rent a scooter to go to work or go to the train station. So they're kind of disrupting cities at the moment in a good and bad way. I'm going to talk a lot about sharing just tools, processes, examples and case studies for all of you. The other thing I will share as well is I will make these slides publicly available, so you don't have to pull out your phone, take photos. We'll distribute them everywhere possible, LinkedIn, through Slack. You can even come to me and connect with me after the event, and I can send you them as well. They're open source pretty much. A few really cool tools. So we developed this strategic design canvas in my last business that I come back to and use a lot. It was one of the first things I did when I wanted to go out on my own and set up a new business. I'll talk about other sort of growth diagnostics, other tools, questions. I think some really simple tools, like just questions you can sit down and ask yourself and journal and talk to other people about to explore your own growth and the growth of a business. I'll touch a little bit on biohacking. That's something I'm pretty interested in at the moment. And I've already mentioned systemic design. It's just a bit about some of the stuff I'm working on in the future. The best bit's the Q&A. So if you think of good questions, please just hold them till the end of the talk. But really keen to have an interactive session. And I'm here to learn from all of you as well. There's a bit of a hive mind in the room. Cool. Sorry, I'll just grab a bit of water. I pulled this image, I threw this deck together very quickly. So as a designer, this is probably one of the ugliest slide decks I've ever done. So sorry about that. But difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. I feel like moving over to Brisbane, and for me, joining a tech startup was always kind of on my journey, and I learnt a lot from it. But pasting from Scott's phone. That's kind of been the story of my career, and a lot of people ask me, how did you get to where you are today, or why'd you do this and why'd you do that? And I kind of just followed my gut and my instincts through people I met, and things I was curious and interested in. I've kind of got that designer's mindset, and sometimes that gets me undone. But so my why, I guess, is just I really want to thrive and grow myself through my life, enjoy the work I do. I want to meet and work with interesting people, but I'm also driven, and I think my generation and the generations coming after us are really driven by this need to change things, change the world. But we've got to really start and play small. So yeah, I'm a Perth native. I was born in Kalgoorlie, so I'm a bit of a country boy with sort of city slicker roots. I always joke I'm a recovering engineer. I loved engineering. I still use my engineering skill set. But I've had so many friends that have kind of worked in the profession, chose engineering or even other degrees, and then kind of exited it and moved into other things. I've tried many different sort of roles throughout my 20s, and now I'm sort of in my early 30s. Entrepreneur and intrapreneur with life and lived experience. I think we've all got that. But I really identified as an intrapreneur, so someone working inside organisations with that kind of entrepreneurial mindset. And that's been a really good thing for me, but it's often got me unstuck. And I've lasted a year in an organisation and then, quit. Sometimes not under good circumstances. But previous co-founder and designer at an awesome business called Holonic. That game we played today was the back of my old business card. Designer just under my own brand, Thrive Human. I'm ex-Beam. People love that, right? When you work for a big startup, you put ex-Beam on your LinkedIn. Worked in Beam operations over in Mianjin, Brisbane. I still live over there, planning to live over there for another couple of months before relocating back home. Worked for Beam, so I'm going to talk about that journey, about that industry. Brisbane's probably about 5 to 6 years ahead of where Perth is and where WA is in terms of electric scooters and electric bike schemes, where international operators are running sort of fleets of vehicles on the streets. My new business, I'm writing a lot. I'm also just started a sort of stand-up comedy career. I'm really trying to grow that. I love doing comedy, so I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Alrighty, so back to sort of the crux of today, which is growth ops. And before we get there, we've got to talk about growth, right? What is growth, right? I remember sort of taking growth for granted. You just grow up through life, you get older. But I've really come back to this. Sorry, before I go to good growth, what is growth? So for me, growth is it's almost a mindset. You'll read and hear a lot these days about a growth mindset. And I think that's something I've really tried to adopt and develop in my life. And just really getting back to basics. So waking up in the morning going, all right, what am I going to do today to grow? I'm going to get older, but how am I going to get, wiser? Who am I going to meet? Things like that. And I use this kind of background in the metaphor of the forest. Right? You think of a forest as this beautiful kind of ecosystem in harmony, and there's all this amazing growth in the forest, And if I'm a seed or a young person, how can I eventually grow to be a matured tree, a wise old tree? I think the other thing with growth is it's not infinite. All right, it ends. Okay, I'm going to die one day. So I think about how can I live a great life, but eventually I will return to the soil. So good growth, I don't have the answer to this question, but this is kind of one of the notions of the talk is how do we define good growth in our lives, but in our businesses as well. Okay, so many organisations and products and services that we consume and use that have just grown rapidly, right? But at what cost? All right, there are stories where, amazing young people have suicided in tech startups and you wouldn't even know about it, okay? And we read it and see it, that it's good growth, okay? But growth at what cost, all right? Examples of bad growth, okay? And I think as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, you need to be able to be aware of you might be growing, but, what's your growth affecting, all right? Things like procuring services, we live in a globalised world. There can't always be, you will have to sit with and deal with bad growth. I use this simple thing of you buy, a bunch of apples from the store and one goes rotten. And you're like, oh, that was, the best before. I just bought that yesterday. You don't know why that went rotten or grew or decayed. Cancer is a good sort of human example of growth, that we're trying to solve. But if you've ever had a friend or a person with an illness, a disease like cancer, it's horrible. And we're trying to reverse, bad growth. But that's just an example that to get you thinking, growth can be good, growth can be bad as well. So that's growth. And sorry, it was that a bit heavy and deep. I'm pretty passionate about things like that, particularly around mental health in young people and in tech startups. So ops is short form for operations. So it's the human and operational aspect of your business, and I put in brackets your life as well, because it needs to really be centred and grounded in that for me. And then growth ops is quite simply just the intersection of growth and ops. And I've used those emojis, the brain, the seedling of growth. I think that's really nice when growth is in that early form, when you have a child and those first few years, or when you're a young entrepreneur and you're a graduate engineer, or my experience in Brisbane when I joined a tech startup at like a kind of entry level as an associate, and I was like, wow, this is so cool, and I grew so much in that role. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that intersection. For me, I think it's a really cool role. Like there are roles in tech startups where you can get hired as a growth associate, growth ops, and it's a really emerging trend. I think we all work in operations in businesses. It's the people aspect. We're managing teams, we're interacting with others, and to go back to really simple roots, all organisations are trying to grow each day. We're trying to make more money, or we're trying to just sort of sustain, pay our staff. In a way, working inside an organisation, everyone should be growing because they're learning new skills and developing. But unfortunately, organisations, I think, get stagnated, or they go in their own direction, or things like that. So I'll try and contextualise growth ops through my experience in Brisbane and working for a tech startup, because in that role, I was an operations associate and manager, but really kind of had this growth mindset. So I chucked this up. This was the LinkedIn post I put the day I left Beam. I'm pretty unique when it comes to how I use LinkedIn, but really love people and the role, and had an awesome time. Moved over to Brisbane in June last year. I'd worked for Beam, helping them launch their Rockingham market. So Beam actually has quite a good presence in regional WA, so they operate small markets of sort of 100 to 200 electric scooters in regional WA. They also tendered for the market here in Perth, but that was awarded to a couple other international operators. The reason why I moved over to Brisbane to work for Beam was an awesome opportunity. I was sort of in between. I'd started a master's, in between jobs. I'd started a master's, and I found this casual job on Sidekicker, of all places, all right, in the gig economy. And I got a phone call from the ops manager, this really awesome Irish guy. And he read my resume, and he's like, man, you are so overqualified for this job. And I said, I know, and I explained to him a bit about like my current situation. And he gave me the role, and we met, and the induction was like how to swap a battery. Do you have a smartphone? Here's the app. Like 5 minutes, here's how you do it. And he was like, you're a smart dude, you'll figure it out. Keys to the van, first shift, off you go. And so I was kind of just driving around Rockingham, swapping batteries. I'd never even ridden an electric scooter before. So I got heaps of free Beam credit. And Rockingham was a great little market. It is still a great little market. Beam's an awesome company. It's an awesome service. That market, I think there was about 3 or 4 other marshals, and that's, thriving down there, going really well. But it was a great opportunity for me. Like, that's where I learnt the ops aspect of the business, and I did the casual work, the dirty work, in a van, chatting to customers, frustrated customers on the foreshore, that couldn't rent a scooter, elderly people that hated scooters and had been clipped, or a young person, things like that. And this is the thing, this disruption in mobility is quite polarising. So that was really cool. And I love people. I'm always curious. There's so much you can learn from like your customers, your people in the community that don't like you or your product or service. And if you can evangelise and flip them, you're doing well. So from there, I applied for an operations associate role in Sydney. Awesome interview process, got to know like all the leadership team, and got offered a role in Brisbane. And the general manager of Beam, on a phone call, in about 5 minutes, kind of sold it to me. He's like, Dill, Brisbane is like the largest micromobility market in Australia and New Zealand. It's got this many fleet. It's been running for this many years. And I was like, wow, that sounds so cool. I've never even been to Queensland. Packed up my life 2 weeks later. Was living in Brisbane. And that was kind of a year ago. So what I learned, what worked, what didn't. So I joined Beam, and then I recently resigned and left Beam. I finished about a month ago. I could talk about this for a while, but I think, yeah, we did some really cool things. So Brisbane as a market has like over 4,000 e-mobility devices, mostly scooters. I think 80 or 90% of them are electric scooters. Quick survey, has anyone ridden an electric scooter here in Perth? Yep. 2, 3, 4. Okay. Not many people, right? It's actually an awesome service. Like if I miss a bus or I'm running late for a meeting, I actually pull out my phone and rent a Neuron or a Bird to get around. Highly encourage you to give it a go. The Birds are still heavily discounted. You can get a ride, I think, for like $2 or $3. Neuron's a great operator. I think they're one of the leading operators in Australia, from what I've seen. But it's a really cool service, and I think even conversations I've had with people since I've moved back, particularly like old bosses and older generations, they really don't like them. And I usually say, like, before you knock them, give them a go and put yourself in the shoes of the rider and the customer. And then I think it'll be a different experience. But it's still a very brand new industry. The usage of the scooters here is still very low. Brisbane is probably about 5 or 6 years ahead. So Brisbane is a very large local government, and it took a bet and started experimenting with micromobility years ago. The Brisbane City Council actually created City Cycle and all these docking stations and started experimenting with e-mobility through bikes themselves. They lost a lot of money on it, I think in the case of millions of dollars, but they learned from that, and then they went out to market and handed it over to tech startups to run their schemes. They booted Lime from the city, and now there's 2 operators in Brisbane, Beam and Neuron. They're kind of the HQ for ops and micromobility in Australia and New Zealand because they're the biggest markets. So like the revenue we were making in Brisbane was quite significant, and that operation was supporting our growth internationally. So for me, I probably didn't realise that at the time, but it was the place to be. We'd sit in an office, we'd have visitors from all around the world. I learned and sat next to software developers, product managers, operations managers. People would fly in from all our Southeast Asian international markets to learn how we did things in Brisbane. So about 6 months in, I was like, cool, picked up the skills, a lot of engineering skills again, learned to code, work with databases, information. But the best part, I think, for me was managing the casual workforce. So I focused on field operations and marshalling. So we had about 10 operational assets, so a fleet of 6 to 7 diesel vans, which really was a bit of a gripe of mine because we were a carbon neutral mobility company. And we had some really cool electric bikes, and we experimented a lot. We actually made our own cargo scooters. So in operations, some of the core tasks were swapping batteries, touching broken vehicles. We had a pretty sophisticated software app. So a rider, for example, you could ride a scooter, and if the helmet was broken or the brake failed, you leave bad feedback, and that then generates a task in the app for one of the marshals to come and touch the vehicle. So really cool, but managing that operation, like the first time I've ever sort of managed and led people in a 24/7 operation, was really cool. So learnt a lot about growth and ops, and I often come at it from a real human perspective, whereas a tech startup, it's very growth, profit driven, looking at your bottom line, looking at your P&L like religiously every week and making decisions based on that. But as a good manager and leader, you've got to trust your gut as well, and you know your people, you know your staff. So we tried a lot of growth experiments. I think just quickly, some of the things that worked well. So I changed our hiring strategy. So we actually had a lot of legacy issues with culture and morale. I was talking to Scott a bit about this on the talk. And we started hiring really good quality. Like we lowered our standards for English speaking, and we started hiring some amazing working visa internationals, and their work ethic and everything was through the roof. And then we just made our efficiency and effectiveness metrics transparent. We published them in a Slack channel every week, and I just went to staff, if I'd cut their shifts. We had staff on through Psychic, but then we onboarded them to our own casual, internal casuals. But I was really transparent, and it's you get paid a really good casual loading, and the numbers speak for themselves. And then there's also metrics of we had shift leads, and then sort of just regular marshals. A bit of a structure, given that it was such a large base. It's how good are you a colleague to work with? And I would go out and chat to people, shadow marshal, and I'd have my own sort of qualitative, or I call it warm data. As a manager or leader, you're just there's these metrics, but you know that person's really trying hard, or they're learning, or they're growing. They might even have a lot of shit going on in their personal lives, mental health. Sometimes I probably got to know my casuals too well, and then it made it really hard to make decisions. But we did some cool stuff. There was we were like a second, third mover in that city, so we had challenges where so many riders in the city didn't have our app on their phone, and they weren't riding our scooters because it was just convenient. A bit like if you came in here as a rideshare company and everyone's using Uber, and you're this new little company that no one wants to even just download the app and give it a go. So we came up with some cool things like I conceptualised this experiment called Project Brown. So brown is the mix between orange and purple. So I was like, how can we get people riding both scooters? And a lot of that sort of stuff as a designer, I just stand at some of our busiest parking spots in Brisbane City and just start doing ethnography and ad hoc design research with customers. And then I'd sort of distill it back and pitch it to my boss, or pitch it to people higher up and go, hey, this is what I've learned, this is what we should do with this information. What didn't? So we had this real tension, I think, between, Beam was great, whereas you join a tech startup as a city lead and associate and you were really trusted to make decisions and know your market. But there was that tension between you wanted to do things that you knew were good. They might not necessarily make you money next week or next 3 months, but in the next year or the year after, they would be good decisions. So I really sat in that. And it's kind of that entrepreneur's mindset as well. One of my favourite sort of mantras as an entrepreneur is ask for forgiveness, not for permission. If you really believe something's a good thing to do, do it, but make sure you know why you're doing it. So I resigned. The industry, I think, is still quite young in Australia, and the expectations and the workload probably just got a bit too much for me. But when I sort of took some time off and reflected why I wanted to resign, I'm sort of like, I've learned everything I needed to know. It was a great experience. I love the industry. I think I would have enjoyed staying in a different role, in more maybe a strategic role where I could have removed myself from the day-to-day of operations. But a lot of companies here, it's hyper competitive. They're still not profitable. A bit like the Uber's trajectory and journey, where it took them, 7 to 10 years, and they just kept buying growth before they listed. I don't even know if they're still profitable. But it's a pretty sort of ruthless journey to growth, and I don't think it's one that I'd want to be a part of again. So life post-Beam for me, I'm still interested in mobility. I think e-scooters are a dangerous place to play. I think they still will be in Australia for another 5 years. They are awesome though, and I think if you ever go to Brisbane and you hop on an e-scooter and ride around, it has changed the way people move around cities, but it has done that through integrated mobility and kind of a holistic approach to mobility in Brisbane. So I'm a cyclist. I much prefer getting on a bike. Walking's also pretty awesome too. It's a good way to get around. Weather obviously affects how we get around, but there's so many cool ways to get around these days. I was morning startup 2 weeks ago. Scott rolled in on his one wheel and his e-rideable. You can bring your device and park it next to your desk. It's pretty cool. Kate Rains-Goldie, another good member of the tech startup community, so she writes a weekly column in Business News. She interviewed me and we did a piece, sort of collaborative piece. She called it Micro-Mobility, Macro Appeal. And that was kind of just talking about the scheme here in Perth and more holistically about mobility, what even, local governments, state governments are getting wrong when they're structuring these contracts and schemes. So have a read of that. It's floating around out the back. The future of the industry for me, I think it needs to be grounded. I'll come back to that kind of human aspect. So it's got to be centred around our well-being. Okay, and I quite often think about this, is how do you want to move each day so it's conducive to your well-being? All right, the best thing I did 7 years ago was sold my car. Okay, I got into cycling. I was then forced to try startups and lease cars. Car Next Door, which is now Uber Car Share. In Brisbane and Sydney and cities on the east, it's so much easier to live without a car. I would love for Perth to be a much easier city in the future to live without owning a car. Okay, when you have a family and kids, I think you still need to own a car. It's great to have a car. A lot of us want a car, right? We don't really need a car. We need access to the car. We need to get from A to B. We like to go on road trips. We like to be able to grab our keys and drive over to our mum's place on the weekend and have a cup of tea. All right. But if we just sort of lean into this disruption in mobility and we, sell your car, buy an e-scooter. You can lease e-bikes here now. There are just a whole, all these startups that are emerging in this industry. In the article in Business News, one of my favourites is a Melbourne-based company called Lug and Carry. So they lease electric cargo bikes, and their whole model is they target families that have, I think, combined income of about 200 grand, so quite rich people. And they kind of convince them or offer them this lease bike to sell and get rid of their second car. And they're like driving their kids to school on this electric cargo bike. They're going to the markets, getting all the things. I've got one in Brisbane. I absolutely love it. I'm selling my motorbike because of how much and how good that lease option is. So I think it's a really cool industry. It's a great one to get into. I'd love to see more Aussie mobility startups, like get a team of people together, raise a little bit of money, go and buy some scooters. The software and the tech to run fleets is not that hard. I think there'll be new business models that will disrupt the sector as well. So a project we worked on years ago with Ninja Software was a cooperative rideshare startup called Ridefare. Didn't quite get legs, but that's going to come and, kick and boot or compete with Uber one day. And that is companies that are owned, more equitable, the flow of capital and wealth and that is more distributed, where the actual value is exchanged in cities. So that's a cool space. Some tools. So I think Scott helped me come up with this one. So it's sort of tangible stuff and takeaways that you can go reflect on, we can talk about afterwards. So I came up with this thing called just 6 questions to good growth. The first one is, why am I growing? So I'm getting older each day. You can take these under the lens of yourself, but also your business or your organisation. You might be growing a human, another child, and having a chat with your partner about, we get older and older each day. Is that growth? Could be, I think, depending on what we do in our world. What am I growing? So I kind of touched on that. So business, self, team. How am I growing? Okay, I'm getting older. Am I getting wiser? Am I getting more physically fit? Okay, I kind of got into the discipline in my life, really into endurance running. I did a few triathlons and I was running the HUF run on the weekend, recovering from the flu, which was really hard, reminding myself of why I'm doing it, right? I'm doing my first marathon in 6 weeks in Queensland, but it's the discipline and the health that comes from that. What are my growth metrics? So more tangibly, things I talked about at Beam. So some of our growth metrics were our revenue, our profit, all sorts of metrics. I think we can get sort of hooked and addicted to metrics in tech. But, how many trips did we do last week? The weather was also a very interesting data point that affected our metrics. I looked at, productivity of my staff. I really wanted to do some kind of subjective surveys like net promoter scores and cultural surveys. I wasn't allowed to, but I would often just chat to my staff and the shift leads and go, how are we doing? Like finger on the pulse, like a retro for last week. Good, bad, happy, sad, So little things like that. And I call that sort of stuff the difference between warm and cold data. So anything in a spreadsheet, any metrics, anything you can analyse, that is a cold data point. All right? It can be awesome data and make you feel warm, but it's cold data. Warm data is the stuff that you can't pull out of a spreadsheet or explain, right? It's you as a manager and a leader interviewing and going, I'm going to hire this person because there's something about them. I don't know what it is, but they're going to be good here, So think about that, your growth metrics. Get really good cold data. I'm not the expert on that. There's some awesome resources in this community. Ammo Marketing has some awesome tools. You've got to really understand what growth diagnostics and metrics you need based on your situation. But yeah, do the best bit's the warm data, and that's where I think as a designer and a real systems thinker on my journey, I'm interested in when you work with the two. What type of growth am I focused on? Okay, so in my life, I think at the moment I'm focused on really slow and intentional growth. I need to support myself and make money running a small business, but I'm very intentional about who I work with and the work I want to do. I think in a business, you need to also think it's do you want rapid growth, hyper growth, growth at all cost growth, or do you want good growth, long-term growth? Are you growing to make money in a week, in a quarter? But will you still be here in 10 years? Will you be relevant? A lot of people and founders and entrepreneurs are growing to exit and sell their business, but they don't know what they want to do next. All right, I don't think that's really values connected and aligned growth, but everyone has different growth journeys, all right? And some of us need to grow and fail and then come back stronger. And I think I'd add in there, like a caveat, is am I considering decay and death too? So when I grow in my life, I would love to die peacefully with a family and, hopefully some people will say good things about me. Maybe some people will say not so nice things, but that's life, right? Our time on this earth is finite. There's a start and there's a finish, all right? But decay as well, so in business and in your own journey, sometimes we need time off work. Sometimes we need to go, we've grown really quickly. Do we need to just steady state or we lay people off? We come back to core. We go, businesses that re-innovate, do a new strategy, or they go, hang on a minute, this year the strategic plan, you get into Q1, Q2, it's not working, all right? Let's just reassess and reevaluate. So think about that, and I come back to the metaphor of the forest. This happens all the time, every day, in one of the most complex, beautiful natural ecosystems, We have bad days, where we get stressed or we don't sleep and we respond and behave differently, But think about growth, I think, at different scales is probably kind of what I'm getting to. But yeah, this is really cool. This is the sort of stuff where I'd sit down and just journal, with a group of friends or people and share, in a really sort of safe space, our answers and our thoughts. The next one was 6 T's, so tools or techniques to good growth. And I did ask a really couple close friends about this on the phone last night as I was kind of just polishing these slides. So for me, these are some things that have worked really well for me in my career. Coaching. So I'm very lucky to have a very talented mother who's an executive coach, does a lot of great work in Perth. I work with another coach who's a good friend, and now we're co-designing some stuff together, a Perth entrepreneur who lives in Portugal. But yeah, there's so many different domains of coaching, and I think coaching, particularly in Perth and WA, is very misunderstood. So I said executive, business, flow, and flow science is the coaching that I really got into kind of 7 years ago, and paid a good chunk of money at the time to do that, and that paid dividends. But I also joke, Jimmy's Little League, So everyone is a coach or can be a coach, but there is certification in different domains of coaching. Okay, so if you're a founder and an entrepreneur, go and find a coach, pay to work with a coach. That is, I think, was my toughest lesson. I remember doing a coaching session, getting an invoice for $374 and just going, what? And then I paid it, and the value I got out of it, like the diagnostic and the tool I had from that 1 hour coaching session, I still use today. So yeah, some of the best CEOs and leaders, even in this town, they're all working with pretty amazing coaches. Sometimes they won't even tell you who they're working with. Systemic design, so there's a whole nother talk on that. That's kind of my focus heading forward. Relationships, so who you surround yourself with, who you choose to be with in your life, who you, your family, if you're building a business in an organisation, you spend more time at work than you do at home sometimes. So build and focus on good relationships. Connectivity, I'm a real sort of community, ecosystem, people person, so I've focused a lot in my career around my connectivity, and that's why I love coming back to Perth and why I'll be moving back to WA, because I feel more connected here than I do in Brisbane. Community and consciousness, a few C's there, but some of the stuff. So consciousness, I think, is the older I've gotten, I've tried to be more conscious and intentional and develop practices like meditation. I'm really into somatics and do a lot of things and experiment with new things. And I've met some amazing people, even some of the startups in well-being. I'd call it well-being entrepreneurship, wellness centres, people starting groups that are doing 4 a.m, 5 a.m. morning swims, and the community and things around that. There's a lot of really cool stuff in Brisbane that I'm probably going to miss when I move back, but I'm sure there's all this stuff emerging in Perth too that I'll find as well. Growth habits and hacking. So I chucked in the corner just a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. That's a really cool book. I've got that on audio. I listen to that again and again. But I just wanted to drop down, and these are kind of just resources that when I share the slide deck, you can come back on, and I encourage you to, think about them, share them with friends, get a journal out, write them down. Discipline. So I think a lot about what my habits, rituals, and practices are. A coach actually really helped me to sort of understand that, and in times of my life where things aren't going very well, I come back to really simple, just daily rituals. I'm running at the moment. I should have gone running early this morning, but I didn't have my slides prepared, so I had to do a little bit more tweaking. But yeah, keep sort of experimenting with them, but come back to just like habits, rituals, and practices that bring you joy and are conducive to your well-being. Scheduling, so scheduling time and planning to, I think scheduling time and planning your time. So I'm pretty religious with my calendar, with events and even just blocking out my time. I'm quite extroverted and I get a lot of my energy from other people. So this talk and meeting you all today is quite energizing for me. But I've learned the older I've gotten, I've got to schedule the time alone. That's one thing I love about endurance athletics is, if I'm doing a triathlon, it's 3.5 hours by myself in my mind, just, going through the motions. And I've really found sort of joy in that. Scheduling time for recovery. We all suffer from burnout, right? Even through winter and that, go on holiday, take the family away. I just have a fire out the back. I'm staying at my dad's house at the moment in Gosnells, and we just had some great fires out the back, cups of tea and just chatting. Don't need to talk sometimes, just be. So a lot of that's around wellbeing and flow. Calendaring, so not just, you Google calendar or your online calendar, but calendar and plan, the day and the weeks, but calendar I'm probably calendaring at the moment up to a year out. But I really want to think about, if I'm growing a business or what I want to do, what am I doing now to calendar? Where am I going to be in 3, 5, 10 years? So things like that. And you can kind of, plan out for that sort of stuff. And a lot of that's like dreaming and future casting and things like that. One of my good friends is a very good Vedic meditation teacher, and she teaches Kundalini activation process, and she talks a lot about surrender. So I like that, chuck that one in. So surrendering, so letting go and letting come. So, you might break up with someone that's really hard, and then years later, you end up finding a better relationship. But there's so many things like that. Just surrender, Don't be tied to even a startup in a business. Our last business, we both agreed that we would both happily walk away from it if it felt right. Designing, so that's a space I play a lot. Design intentionally, all things can. That was a typo, sorry. Can or were designed. So I come back to that, so they can be redesigned. Doing, so learn by doing. Trying, prototyping. Flirting is a good word. So flirting is like a MASH. It stands for fuck up learning. So go and learn by fucking up. I've definitely done that probably too many times. I think the end state or the goal there is thriving. Being, so meditate, find a practice for consciousness. You can have a cup of tea and just micro-meditate, just stare into the tea, just drink and just breathe. And then reflect as well, so listening, journaling, thinking, and they all sort of come back on themselves. So growth tools and diagnostics are some more tangible stuff you could take away from this talk. We developed a really cool tool when I worked at Hellenic with, he's an amazing systemic designer, Andrew Thompson, got to give him a plug. Couldn't make it today. I think he's on jury duty or something. But yeah, he's got a brilliant mind, and we sort of worked with people and learnt and came back to kind of like, what are people doing wrong, or what are simple tools that can help? That card game was one of the things we came up with, but the strategic design canvas is really cool. We're happy to share that out, I think, and get it out to people if they're interested. So we would often do this tool, this canvas, which is just an A3 document. Has anyone done like a business model canvas or canvases before? Yep. They're quite common, right? If you go to a startup weekend, so startup weekend, highly recommend that. I think Jasmine Wards facilitates them. Great facilitator will use tools, business model canvases, empathy canvases, persona canvases. Sometimes we get a bit too addicted to canvases, but they're great tools to just be able to print out and in half an hour, just go, cool, this is like me mapping out my thoughts or my business model, and come back to them. So I actually keep, like for my own business and myself and my projects, I work a lot in digital boards, but I usually work first in analog. So I do a canvas, I take a photo of it, and then you can make a digital canvas and you can come back to it. We would often complete the strategic design canvas we created in parallel with the business model canvas. And we would tell people to keep coming back to it, revisit it as you grow yourself and your business. So the next slide is kind of the gist of the canvas in talks that Andrew still gives, and he kindly shared it with me, but I'll give the accreditation to him because it's licensed open source under his brand, Holonic. And this is one of the cruxes of the things, and Andy kind of came up with this, but it's this kind of strategic purpose, planning and action kind of pyramid. So we start at the top right. The values has sort of come out of the box, but your values are the top of the pyramid, and questions are, who are we or who are you? Your ethics, your principles, your beliefs. You can spend a lifetime trying to answer that question, but write down and get really clear on what your values are. Okay, so I think about that, and I value a lot of things, but I really value, myself, and I'm in this state now. I'm owning my own value, and that's why I'm kind of like, I don't want to work for an organisation. I just want to work for myself and figure it out. But then coming down the pyramid, this is a tool, like I remember even pulling it out when we did our annual strategic planning process in my last job. And I think that's one of the hardest skill sets in business these days, is developing strategy and empowering teams to execute on a good strategic plan. If you're a startup and you're working in an industry that is, VUCAD, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, disruptive, you cannot have a PDF document for 12 months that is your strategic plan. I don't think it works. Okay. So coming down, your vision, and there's different timescales you can use, but I think short-termism is a big problem in the world. All right, as startups or as organisations, it's like the now, but also think through the future. So your vision, why are we here, and why are we in this business? If the market changed, what would we be doing that we currently do? How does this work fulfill our core values and ethics? Next, it comes down to your mission. What do we do? What do we want to contribute? How can we change our work or industry? And then it's your strategic goals, and that's kind of your 1 to 5 year time frame. When do we do it? What do we want to accomplish? When do we want to accomplish it? And then your tactics are kind of like the smaller time frame. How do we get there? Short-term goals, projects, business model details. So the canvas, and I can make this available through Andy, is basically a tool where you can unpack and write down all this sort of stuff. You can do it on yourself. I meet and coach a lot of young entrepreneurs that they're like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know what business I want to do. I'm doing a program on the East Coast through a StartMate, which is these huge entrepreneurship education communities, online and in person. And so many entrepreneurs are just like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but I just don't know what. It's like, come back to this. What are your values? Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Then build a business from that. And I think you'll find a problem or a sector or an industry that you're really passionate about. Right? Cool. So that's that. To wrap up, some of the stuff I'm working on now, and just to see, come and chat to me afterwards if you're interested in these sorts of things. So biohacking, I had probably an experience gone wrong with biohacking. I won't talk about that here. But I'm also doing some research, I think, particularly with tech startups, other young entrepreneurs, even some elderly friends who have time and money, so they're experimenting a bit. But biohacking is, I just pulled the definition there, the biological experimentation done to improve the qualities or capabilities of living organisms, especially by individuals and groups working outside a traditional medical or scientific research environment. That was cool. Focused on growing another business, Thrive Human, which is centred on me thriving, the business and their wider community system having positive sort of systems impact. I'm writing a lot. I'm writing a book about my journey called The Living Startup. That's why I renamed my Instagram. So having fun with that. Doing some stand-up comedy and learning to design things that bring people joy and make them laugh, but also make people think differently. And go away and laugh and go, oh, hang on a minute, that was actually, funny, but he was kind of right. Maybe I should change my behaviour or something. Connecting with other systemic designers and innovators along the way. That's all from me.
Great, Dylan. Cheers, man. I know we've gone a little bit over, so what I might do is, if you guys have questions, while I turn this place back into a co-working space, come and ask him. Is that cool with you? Just wander around the room and get to know each other. Sweet, awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming down again on a sort of miserable Wednesday morning. Again, in 2 weeks' time, got the pitch event. So send us an email, contact@morningstartup.com if you want to get involved, and we'll see you then. But thanks so much. Just give him one more round of applause. Thanks, Dylan.